8 mornings at 6.
All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here on this last Monday of 2024 here at 6 a.m. I'm Chris Groh.
And I'm Nada Irampour. We do want to start off with your forecast as this week is beginning. Things are going to be changing for the new year.
Yeah, I mean, if you had like Ramona being sub-freezing on your bingo cards before the New Year's up, then you can check that box.
Okay.
30 degrees is what they got down to this morning. They're now at 32. Poway's at 32 degrees. Cold out there, foggy out there. But as we get toward the new year, January 1st and January 2nd, we're looking at a decent temperature warm-up out there. 50s out along the coast right now, so a bit of a discrepancy if you're along the coast versus if you're inland. 62 by the afternoon, 68 across our inland valleys, and 69 for the mountains. We are all expected to make it into the 70s by the time we get to about your Wednesday and Thursday afternoon. Those are going to be our warmest days. For now, here's a look at visibility out the door. We'll talk a bit more about this and about how this might be one of the final mornings this week that we'll be seeing that dense layer of clouds out there. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Evan. And this morning, millions around the country are pausing to remember the life of the nation's 39th president, Jimmy Carter.
Carter died yesterday at the age of 100. He was surrounded by his loved ones at his home in Plains, Georgia, after battling cancer and other health setbacks. CBS's Nicole Valdez has a look at how Americans are honoring his life and legacy.
A nation in mourning as tributes pour in to honor former President Jimmy Carter.
It's a really sad thing. It's a loss. It is a loss.
In Washington, D.C., visitors reflected on Carter's legacy as a man who rose from humble beginnings on a peanut farm in Plains, Georgia, to become a Navy officer, Georgia governor, one-term president, Nobel laureate, and longtime volunteer with Habitat for Humanity.
He was the first president I voted for that won. I think he was someone who tried to do good things for this country.
Flags were lowered to half staff at the White House and the U.S. Capitol. Just outside the city, there was a moment of silence before the Sunday night football game between the Washington Commanders and the Atlanta Falcons. New York's Empire State Building lit up in red, white, and blue.
A makeshift memorial of flowers and messages are growing here at the Carter Center in Atlanta. One note reads simply, "We love you, President Carter."
Last night, President Joe Biden called Carter a remarkable leader, humanitarian, and dear friend.
Some look at Jimmy Carter and see a man of a bygone era with honesty and character, faith and humility. It mattered. But I don't believe it's a bygone era. I see a man not only of our times, but for all times.
The Carter Center says public memorial services will also be held in Atlanta, all before Carter is laid to rest near his home, next to his beloved wife, Rosalind. Nicole Valdez, CBS News, Atlanta.
And President-elect Trump is also reacting to former President Carter's passing. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said, quote, "He worked hard to make America a better place, and for that I give him my highest respect. He was truly a good man, and of course will be greatly missed."
A San Diego man formed a close friendship with the former president, Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, CBS 8's Regina Irita is live in studio with that part of the story and how Carter is being remembered here in San Diego, and of course, a connection, Regina.
Right, so many ties to San Diego, starting with this friendship. Good morning, guys. Former President Carter spent time here in San Diego. He visited on October 11th, 1979. He was greeted by local politicians and even shook the hands of a group of Boy Scouts from Terra Santa. As reaction to his death has been pouring in around the world, here locally, we talked to one San Diegan who was friends with Carter and shared a passion for woodworking.
Personal commitment to never changing his moral compass, just so that he always did what he thought was right for the country, for the Carter Center, for his family. He was always thinking about others first and making sure that things were done right.
And so that is Russ Philbeck. More than 20 years ago, he was writing a book about how to make wooden chairs. Knowing Carter had the same love for woodworking, Philbeck decided to reach out to him. They ended up becoming friends, and Carter and his wife even visited Philbeck's workshop. He gave President Carter a rocking chair that became a beloved piece of furniture in the former president's home. Now, Philbeck and his wife are very involved with the Carter Center. They make chairs for the fundraising auctions and say they've helped raise more than $2 million. He's hopeful the former president's legacy will live on. Governor Gavin Newsom also shared his condolences on social media, saying in part, quote, President Carter was a man of rare character whose beliefs ran true and ran deep, whose moral compass never wavered. He saw the common humanity in all of us, building bridges between people of different faiths and factions abroad while working to meet the needs of those at home. Mayor Todd Gloria also saying his humanitarian work, including here in our city, will endure for generations to come. Our heartfelt condolences go out to the Carter family. And of course, the San Diego Habitat for Humanity also honored the life of Carter and the legacy he leaves behind. They wrote, quote, here in San Diego, his impact continues to guide and inspire our work, reminding us that together we can create lasting change for families and communities. Back to you guys.
Regina, thank you very much for that. We will have a closer look at Carter's legacy and lifelong love story with his wife. That'll be coming up here in a few minutes. We do have other news to get to here this morning. A tragic update. An 11-year-old martial arts student has now been taken off of life support after he was hit by a car near El Cajon. Here are some pictures of him. This is so sad. His Muay Thai coach confirms Kevin Uda died yesterday afternoon. Kevin was on a run with his teammates last week, and his coach, James Gregory, says, excuse me, a dog lunged at the boys, and Kevin jumped back into the street. Gregory said Kevin was hit by a car that appeared to be speeding. Gregory says CHP is investigating, and it is unclear if the driver will face any charges. Gregory says Kevin had been training with him for about 1.5 years at Pure Heart Muay Thai.
Dedicated young person. It's rare to have a young person who not only comes every day and is focused, but then does work on their own outside of the gym. He was really an ideal and a model student and someone who a coach loves to have.
Now, Gregory says Kevin's heart kept beating for almost 15 minutes, even after life support was removed, and called him a fighter until the very end.
And at least 4 people are dead this morning after severe weather hit the southeast. There were 47 tornadoes reported across at least 6 states. The storms left homes destroyed, trees down, and roads blocked. All of this wild weather is taking place during one of the busiest travel weeks of the year. And in San Diego, we've been seeing some heavy fog. According to the flight tracking site FlightAware, there were about 350 delays at the San Diego International Airport yesterday. It looks like things are much smoother this morning with only about a handful of delays.
Glad to hear, but there's some fog if you're driving, so heads up, here's Evan.
And this is the time around 6 o'clock that we start to see the bulk of those flights take off, which means that we could start to see some delays in the next several hours. We'll watch for that. Fog is most intense, not along the coast, so that's why you might be good to go out at San Diego International, but actually inland is where the most intense fog is. Fallbrook and Ramona are at less than a mile of visibility right now. You had El Cajon at 1.5 miles, but out along the coast, you're at pretty smooth 7 to 10 miles of visibility. So here's that view from Mount Soledad toward the coast. We've got 2 different layers of clouds, a little bit of patchy fog inland, that's one. And then the second is this kind of cloud shelf that's resting at about 1,000 feet above the surface. So that's why even in areas that see the fog, once that fog dissipates or pulls back from the coast, we might still hang out with this cloud layer for a bit. 6:51 is sunrise, so we still have another 40 minutes or so before we see much of that light come through, and it'll likely stay gray for a good portion of the morning. We're going to have mornings to come, however, that are going to be clear. That's because we have offshore flow building for the next several days. So it's likely that Wednesday morning, Thursday morning, we'll have much clearer skies in the forecast. Even in the morning, we'll also have dry skies all the way through at least this upcoming weekend, if not through the beginning of next week. Almost a 0%, and in some cases literally a 0% shot at any wet weather in the forecast. As those winds shift offshore, they'll help to bring some of that warmer air from the east of us toward the coast. And that's going to help to warm us for Wednesday and Thursday in particular. 72 degrees, that's the warmest day of the next 10, it looks like. And that'll take us to about 5 or so degrees warmer than average. We cool down a bit on the back end by this upcoming weekend for that first weekend of 2025. But in the meantime, we're a little bit cooler today and tomorrow before we start to see that temperature warm up. Let's check in on traffic, talk about your roads. So far, things have been pretty quiet. Fog has been the biggest impact, so that's been an issue that we've been contending with. I'll take you to 2 situations that we have right now. First one is on surface streets. So that's a crash on Imperial Avenue. That's not affecting the 94, but is right off of the 94. You can see how there's still green there around it. So speeds are still pretty smooth. Second one to mention that could start to cause some delays, but luckily is likely pushed off to the shoulder, is what's on the 15 northbound entry ramp to the 15 northbound from University Avenue. There is a lane blocked, CHP is reporting. So we're watching for that this morning, but it still looks like since volume is very, very light this morning, that's not causing any major backups. Let's look at your border wait time. 60-minute wait at the San Ysidro Port of Entry. Otay Mesa Port of Entry is going to take you a little bit longer this morning, about an hour and a half in total. Ned and Chris.